Hello guys, news today here. I don't think people understand just how deep the story of Lilith really goes. The name Lilith is more than just a name, it's a whisper on the wind, a half-remembered story from the edge of history. For centuries, she has haunted the margins of our most sacred texts and folklore, a figure both feared and revered. Who was she? A demon? The first woman? A goddess? Or something else entirely? Our journey starts here, today, on June 27th, 2025, picking up a trail that has gone cold for millennia. This isn't just a hunt for a mythological figure, it's a quest to understand a powerful idea that refuses to die, an echo that has traveled through time from the dust of ancient empires to the digital forums of the modern world. My first encounter with Lilith wasn't in a dusty library or through conversations with historians. Instead, it began online, diving deep into Wikipedia articles and digital archives. The research felt like opening a puzzle box with countless hidden compartments, each Wikipedia page linking to another layer of the mystery. To find Lilith, you can't just read one article. You have to follow a breadcrumb trail scattered across Wikipedia entries and online sources. The clues are hidden in plain sight, on ancient clay tablets, in the footnotes of religious texts, and in the symbolism of Renaissance art, all meticulously catalogued online. Each piece we uncover only leads to more questions, pulling us deeper into a mystery that connects ancient anxieties about the wild and the dark with modern struggles for freedom and identity. Our mission is to trace this enigmatic figure back to her very source. We will travel from the sun-baked plains of Mesopotamia, where spirits known as the Lilitu first troubled the dreams of humanity, to the medieval monasteries of Europe, where her legend twisted into something new and terrifying. We will examine ancient artifacts, decipher cryptic texts, and explore the insights of experts whose work is now accessible through Wikipedia and online resources. This is an expedition into the heart of a legend, a search for the real story behind the first rebel. This journey is about more than just history. It's about the power of a story to shape who we are. The path ahead is uncertain, filled with contradictory accounts and lost fragments of lore. Some say Lilith was a demon who preyed on the innocent. Others claim she was a symbol of divine feminine power, unjustly demonized by patriarchal storytellers. The truth, I suspect, is far more complex and fascinating than any single version of her tale. As we embark on this investigation, we must keep an open mind, ready to challenge our own assumptions. The first clue is waiting for us not in a book, but in the baked clay of ancient Iraq. And with it, a new question arises. What if Lilith is older than the Bible itself? Our quest takes us back 4,000 years to the cradle of civilization Mesopotamia. Here between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, the Sumerians, Akkadians, and Babylonians etched their stories onto clay tablets. Long before the book of Genesis was ever written, these people lived in a world teeming with spirits, gods, and demons. I'm holding a replica of a cuneiform tablet from the city of Ur. It doesn't mention Lilith by name, but it speaks of the Lilitu, restless and dangerous wind spirits. These were not singular entities but a class of supernatural beings, embodying chaos and the untamable forces of nature. They were said to swoop in on the night wind, disrupting the ordered world of humanity. These ancient Mesopotamian spirits were associated with specific fears. The Ardot Lily was a spectral maiden who could not find a human partner, and in her frustration preyed upon young men. Even more feared was Lamashtu, a terrifying divine demoness with the head of a lion and the body of a woman. She was the ultimate threat to family and continuity, a figure who snatched newborns from their cribs and afflicted pregnant women. These weren't just campfire stories, they were deeply held beliefs that explained the unexplainable tragedies of life, from infant mortality to sudden illness. People used incantations and wore protective amulets to ward them off. As these cultures mingled and their myths evolved, the various attributes of these female spirits began to coalesce around a single powerful figure. The name Lilith itself is believed to derive from the Akkadian word Lilitu, meaning spirit or wind. On a famous terracotta plaque from ancient Babylon, known as the Burney relief, we see a winged, bird-footed goddess flanked by owls. For years, scholars debated if this was Lilith, the goddess Ishtar, or another deity. The image is powerful, a figure of undeniable feminine power, yet linked to creatures of the night and the underworld, perfectly capturing the ambiguity that would define Lilith for millennia. This Mesopotamian origin is the bedrock of Lilith's entire legend. It establishes her as a being of the wild, of the night, existing outside the boundaries of civilization and domesticity. She wasn't born from a human story of sin, but from a much older, primal fear of the unknown darkness. She is chaos personified, a force of nature that cannot be controlled by walls or laws. This foundation is crucial as we move forward in our investigation. But it leaves us with a tantalizing puzzle. How did this Mesopotamian night spirit find her way into the holy scriptures of the Abrahamic faiths? The next clue is a single, cryptic verse in a prophetic book. Our journey now takes us from the clay tablets of Babylon to the ancient scrolls of the Hebrew Bible. For a figure so legendary, Lilith's direct appearance in scripture is incredibly brief, almost like a ghost in the machine. We find it in one specific place, the book of Isaiah chapter 34 verse 14. The prophet is describing the utter desolation that will befall the land of Edom as a divine punishment. He paints a grim picture of a cursed wasteland, a place where civilization has crumbled and only wild, fearsome creatures remain. It's a vision of the end of the world where jackals, hyenas, and owls will make their home among the ruins. And then, in the middle of this catalog of desolate inhabitants, the text says, "There too shall the Lilith repose and find for herself a place of rest." The original Hebrew word used is Lilith. This single mention is an explosive clue. For centuries, translators struggled with it. Some, wanting to avoid a direct reference to a pagan demon, rendered it as screech owl or night creature. But many modern scholars now agree that the most accurate translation is simply to transliterate the name Lilith. It's a direct link, a bridge connecting the Mesopotamian demoness to the world of the Bible. This verse is a narrative vacuum, a tiny crack in the scriptural wall that storytellers and mystics would rush to fill for the next 2,000 years. Why is she here? Isaiah doesn't explain. She is simply present, a known entity, assumed to be familiar to the original audience. This suggests that the folk belief in Lilith was so widespread in ancient Judea that a prophet could mention her by name without needing to provide any backstory. She was part of the landscape of fear, a resident of the world's most desolate and haunted places. She belongs not in the cities of men, but in the chaos that reclaims them when they fall. The mention in Isaiah anchors Lilith within a canonical tradition, giving her a legitimacy she never had as a mere folk demon. It transformed her from a foreign spirit into a character with a place, however small, in the sacred narrative. But it also deepens the mystery. If she was known enough to be named, what were the other stories told about her? What tales were whispered around campfires that never made it into the official texts? The silence of the Bible on this matter is deafening. To find the next piece of the puzzle, we must turn to a controversial and satirical medieval text that dared to write Lilith directly into the story of creation itself. For centuries, Lilith remained a shadowy figure in the wasteland of Isaiah. Then, sometime between the 8th and 10th centuries, a radical and explosive story appeared in a medieval Jewish text known as the Alphabet of Ben Sira. This satirical work was controversial, but it gave the world the most famous and influential chapter of Lilith's story. It answered a question that had long puzzled biblical scholars. Why does the book of Genesis seem to have two different creation accounts for woman? The alphabet proposed a shocking answer because there were two different women. Eve was not the first, Lilith was. According to this text, God created the first man, Adam, from the dust of the earth. And then, from that very same earth, he created Lilith. This detail is everything. She was not made from his rib, a secondary creation, but from the same source material. Because of this, Lilith saw herself as Adam's absolute equal. The text recounts that their equality soon became a source of conflict. When they were together, Adam insisted that Lilith lie beneath him. She refused, arguing fiercely, "Why must I lie beneath you? I also was made from dust and am therefore your equal." It was a declaration of independence at the dawn of humanity. Her defiance was an act of ultimate rebellion. When Adam would not relent, Lilith did the unthinkable. She uttered the ineffable sacred name of God, a name that held immense power. In that instant she was granted wings and flew away from Adam and the Garden of Eden, choosing a life of exile in a cave by the Red Sea over a life of submission. This act transformed her. She was no longer just a night demon. She was the first independent woman, the first person to demand personal freedom and autonomy, even at the cost of paradise. She traded Eden for self-determination. The story doesn't end there. The The text says that God sent 3 angels, Senoi, Sansonoi, and Samangeloff, to bring her back. They found her by the sea, but she refused to return. As punishment, she was condemned to have 100 of her demon children die every day. In retaliation, Lilith swore to attack human infants, but she agreed to spare any child protected by an amulet bearing the names of the 3 angels who had confronted her. This tale brilliantly weaves her old identity as a child-snatching demon with her new identity as a rebellious first wife, explaining the origin of protective amulets and cementing her complex legacy. But what happened to her after she left Eden? For that, we must venture into the esoteric world of Jewish mysticism. After the gave Lilith a backstory, her character continued to evolve in the rich soil of Jewish folklore and mysticism. In the collections of rabbinic writings known as the Talmud, compiled between the 3rd and 8th centuries, she really solidifies her demonic reputation. Here she is described as a dangerous succubus with long hair and wings, a peril to any man who sleeps alone in a house. The rabbis warned that she roams the night, seeking to lead men astray and conceive demonic offspring from their wasted seed. This portrayal cemented her image as a creature of temptation and impurity, a genuine threat to piety and domestic stability. However, it is in the mystical tradition of Kabbalah, particularly in the medieval book of that Lilith undergoes her most profound transformation. She is elevated from a simple folk demon into a major cosmic figure, a powerful archetype in the metaphysical structure of the universe. The mystics envisioned a reality composed of 2 opposing forces, the side of holiness, and the other side of impurity and evil. In this cosmic drama, Lilith becomes the queen of the other side. She is the dark feminine counterpart to the divine feminine presence of God. In these esoteric texts, she is often depicted as the consort of Samael, the archangel of death, who is considered the primary ruler of the demonic realm. Together, Lilith and Samael form a dark, unholy union, a mirror image inversion of the sacred pairing of Adam and Eve, or of God and the Shekinah. They rule over their kingdom of shells, which are the manifestations of spiritual impurity. Lilith is no longer just a threat to a single household. She is a fundamental cosmic force, a source of spiritual darkness that actively seeks to unbalance the world and pull souls away from the divine light. This Kabbalistic evolution is fascinating because it gives Lilith a new kind of power and significance. She is no longer just a spurned first wife or a simple night demon. She is the embodiment of the shadow self on a cosmic scale, representing all that is repressed, untamed, and sensual. She is the necessary darkness that defines the light, a crucial player in the universe's grand design. Her story becomes a complex allegory for the internal struggles within the human soul. This mystical vision of Lilith as a dark queen would haunt the imagination of occultists and artists for centuries, but it raises a new question. Does this powerful female figure have parallels in other cultures? As our investigation expands, we find that Lilith is not alone. While her name may be unique to the Near East, her archetype, the dangerous, seductive, and child-threatening female spirit, appears in cultures all across the ancient world. It seems that many civilizations created their own versions of Lilith to explain similar fears and anxieties. Looking toward ancient Greece and Rome, we find a pantheon of figures who share her dark characteristics. The sirens, for instance, were bird-like women whose beautiful songs lured sailors to their deaths, embodying the idea of deadly, irresistible temptation. The harpies were winged monsters who snatched food and people, representing chaos and divine punishment. A more direct parallel can be found in the tragic figure of Lamia. According to Greek myth, Lamia was a beautiful queen of Libya who became a lover of Zeus. When Zeus's jealous wife Hera discovered the affair, she murdered all of Lamia's children. Driven mad by grief and rage, Lamia transformed into a monstrous creature, a terrifying boogeyman who, in her own envy and sorrow, hunted and devoured the children of others. The parallels to Lilith's story are striking. Both are figures of great loss, whose pain twists them into predators of the young, embodying the fear of a mother's grief turned monstrous and destructive. Further exploring Greco-Roman lore, we encounter the Empusi. These were shape-shifting female demons often said to have one leg of a donkey and one of bronze. They were servants of the goddess Hecate, the queen of witchcraft and the night. The Empusi were known to seduce young men, often appearing as beautiful women, only to drain their life force and feast on their flesh. This image of the supernatural seductress who leads men to their doom is a perfect echo of the Talmudic portrayal of Lilith as a succubus who preys on men in their sleep, highlighting a widespread cultural anxiety surrounding female sexuality and its perceived dangers. These cross-cultural connections are vital. They show us that Lilith is not an isolated phenomenon but part of a global family of dark feminine archetypes. From the Vedalas of India to the Pontianak of Malaysia, cultures everywhere have created stories about beautiful, dangerous female spirits who operate outside the rules of society. These figures represent a universal set of human fears: the fear of untamed nature, of uncontrolled female power and sexuality, and the profound terror of losing a child. Lilith may be the most famous, but her sisters in myth prove that the shadow she casts is long and wide. Our next stop is medieval Europe, where her legend would once again transform. As the Roman Empire fell and Christianity spread across Europe, Lilith's story traveled with it, merging and mingling with local folklore. In the medieval European imagination, she found new life, her identity blending seamlessly with pre-existing beliefs about witches, night spirits, and female demons. The rich tapestry of her Mesopotamian and Jewish origins was woven into the fabric of Christian demonology. Here, she was not a complex figure of rebellion but was simplified into a servant of Satan, a clear-cut agent of evil who threatened the souls of the faithful and the stability of the Christian family. One of the most powerful forms she took was that of the succubus. This belief, which had roots in the Talmudic Lilith, became a widespread obsession in medieval Europe. A succubus was a demon in female form who would visit men, particularly monks and other pious individuals, in their sleep. She would seduce them, causing them to have lustful dreams and spill their seed, which the demon would then use to create more demonic offspring or to gain power. Lilith became the queen of these demons, the original succubus, whose primary goal was to corrupt humanity through its most vulnerable desires, turning carnal sin into a gateway for demonic influence. Alongside the succubus, Lilith's identity also merged with the figure of the night hag. Across Europe, people believed in a malevolent female spirit who would sit on a sleeping person's chest, causing feelings of suffocation, paralysis, and terrifying nightmares, a phenomenon we now call sleep paralysis. This creature was blamed for everything from bad dreams to sudden death in the night. Lilith, with her ancient association with the night and her reputation for bringing terror, was a natural fit for this role. She became the face of the formless dread that lurks in the darkness, a direct threat to both the body and the soul. During this period, Lilith became a symbol of everything the medieval church feared about women: untamed sexuality, esoteric knowledge, witchcraft, and defiance of religious authority. She was the ultimate cautionary tale, the embodiment of the dangers of straying from the path of righteousness. The church used her story to enforce patriarchal norms and to warn against the temptations of the flesh. But by casting her as such a powerful and terrifying adversary, they also inadvertently ensured her survival. She became an icon of the forbidden, a figure of dark power whose legend would only grow stronger in the shadows. This demonized image would persist for centuries until a new age brought a new interpretation. For centuries, Lilith was trapped in the role of a demon. But as the world moved into the modern era, a dramatic shift occurred. Beginning with the Romantic poets and artists of the 19th century, people started to look at Lilith in a new light. They were drawn to her tragic and defiant story, seeing her not as a simple villain but as a complex, misunderstood heroine. The pre-Raphaelite painter Dante Gabriel Rossetti famously depicted her as a beautiful, sensual woman, combing her long golden hair, a symbol of fatal, captivating beauty rather than pure evil. This was the beginning of her rehabilitation, the first step in reclaiming her from the demonic shadows. This process of reinterpretation exploded in the 20th century with the rise of the feminist movement. For modern feminists, Lilith's story from the alphabet of Ben Sira became a foundational text. Her refusal to lie beneath Adam was no longer seen as an act of sinful pride, but as the first recorded act of female resistance to patriarchal domination. She became a proto-feminist icon, a powerful symbol of a woman who chose exile and damnation over submission. She represented the fight for equality, bodily autonomy, and the courage to say no to an unjust system, even when the consequences are dire. In psychology, particularly in Jungian analysis, Lilith found another modern role as a symbol of the shadow self. She represents the parts of our psyche that we often repress or deny, our untamed instincts, our raw creative power, our anger, and our wild sexuality. Engaging with the myth of Lilith became a therapeutic tool, a way for individuals, especially women, to confront and integrate these powerful, hidden aspects of their personality. To embrace Lilith was to embrace one's own wholeness, acknowledging the darkness as a necessary and powerful part of the light, leading to greater self-awareness and personal empowerment. Today, Lilith is more prominent in culture than ever before. She appears in novels, television shows, music, and art, celebrated as a symbol of fierce independence and reclaimed power. The Lilith Fair Music Festival of the 1990s famously used her name to celebrate female artists. Online, she is a patron saint for neo-pagan and Wiccan communities, revered as a dark goddess of freedom and magic. She has been transformed from a demon to be feared into an ancestor to be honored. But this reclamation raises its own questions. In celebrating the rebel, have we forgotten the demon? Is it possible for her to be both? Our expedition has taken us from ancient Mesopotamia to the digital age, chasing a shadow that constantly changes shape. We have seen Lilith as a wind spirit, a wasteland demon, Adam's first wife, a queen of hell, and a feminist icon. After all this, the question remains, who is she? The answer, I believe, is that she is all of these things at once. Lilith is not a static figure with a single true identity. Instead, she is a living myth, a cultural mirror that reflects the anxieties, desires, and struggles of the society telling her story. She is a vessel into which we pour our deepest fears and our highest aspirations. The quest to unveil Lilith reveals far more about us than it does about her. Her evolution tracks humanity's own changing relationship with the concept she represents. In ancient times, when infant mortality was high and the wilderness was a constant threat, she was a child-snatching demon of the night. In the rigid patriarchal structures of medieval religion, she became the ultimate symbol of sinful female defiance and dangerous sexuality. And in our modern era, as we question those same structures and fight for equality, she has been reborn as a hero of rebellion and a symbol of reclaimed feminine power. Chasing Lilith's shadow teaches us that history is not a set of facts carved in stone, but a collection of stories, and the stories we choose to tell and how we tell them matter. The figures we demonize and the heroes we create define our values. The enduring power of Lilith's legend lies in its ambiguity. She resists easy categorization. Is she a victim or a villain, a creative force or a destructive one? The fact that we are still asking these questions after 4,000 years is a testament to her complexity. She forces us to confront the uncomfortable, to look into the shadows, both in our world and within ourselves. So the journey doesn't end here. It can't. Every new book, every new painting, every new conversation adds another layer to her story. Lilith remains an enigma, her final truth always just out of reach, pulling us forward into the next chapter of the investigation. Perhaps the ultimate purpose of her myth is not to be solved, but to be endlessly explored. She is the eternal question, the whisper that reminds us that the most interesting stories are not the ones with clear answers, but the ones that live forever in the mysterious, uncharted territories of our imagination. The quest for Lilith is, and always will be, an expedition unknown, but with Eve as the true first woman in the Hebrew Bible.